Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. I'm your host, Brenda. Welcome to the 9th day of December on Friday, 2016. I have a mishmash of different articles to bring to you here. I believe there's about 10 of them. You probably hear my co-host in the background, Fred, the cockatiel. He's throwing y'all kisses this morning. He's in a good mood. The first article that I have for you is off of Breitbart.com, and it says House Republicans join Democrats to block impeachment of IRS commissioner. You'll remember yesterday I brought you the news here about the uh, IRS commissioner about to get himself impeached. Well, maybe it's going to get blocked. We'll see what they're going to do here. In a rare moment of bipartisanship, House Republicans and House Democrats came together to block a privileged motion by members of the House Freedom Caucus aimed at forcing the whole House to vote on the impeachment of IRS Commissioner John Kosukin. Floor, Republican Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, forcefully called for the House to hold the commissioner accountable by passing House Resolution 828, calling for the impeachment of Kosukin for high crimes and misdemeanors. As the Ohio congressman began to speak, House Democrats began to clamor in disapproval. Turning to his colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Jordan said, "You might want to listen to what we have to say first, and then you can moan and groan." According to House rules written by Thomas Jefferson and known as Jefferson's Manual, upon giving notice of his intent to demand a privileged motion, the House leadership has 2 days to schedule an up or down vote without debate. The right to pursue impeachment is an indispensable power that Congress has for holding government officials accountable to the American people, Jordan said. Under his watch, with subpoenas and preservation orders in place, John Kosukin not only allowed 422 backup tapes containing as many as 24,000 Lois Lerner emails to be destroyed, he then failed to tell Congress about it in a timely manner. John Kosukin has been able to get away with stonewalling Congress, obstructing justice, and breaching the public trust. It's time that Congress held him accountable for his actions. The motion was filed by Representative John Fleming, Republican of Louisiana, a House Freedom Caucus member, who opted to leave Congress at the end of his session in order to launch an ultimately unsuccessful bid for the Senate. Fleming's bill was originally filed in July 13th, just before Congress left for its extended recess for the National Party conventions and campaigning. Fleming, along with Representative Tim Huelskamp, Republican of Kansas, was on the verge of demanding a vote in September, but he was pressured the night before the House Republican leadership. At the time, Fleming was promised a hearing in the House Judiciary Committee and the prospect of a vote after the election. The impeachment bill charged Kosukin with 4 crimes. Number 1, engaged in a pattern of conduct that is incompatible with his duties as an officer of the United States by failing to respond to lawfully issued congressional subpoenas. Number 2, engaged in a pattern of deception that demonstrated his unfitness to serve by making a series of false and misleading statements to Congress in contravention of his oath to tell the truth. Number 3, acted in a manner inconsistent with the trust and confidence placed in him as an officer of the United States. And number 4, failed to act with competence and forthrightness in overseeing the investigation into IRS targeting of Americans because of their political affiliations. And there is video in this if you'd like to pull this one up and take a look at it at your leisure. All of the URLs are in the description of this video, so you can do whatever research you'd like to do on them. It goes on and says Minority Leader Representative Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California, made the motion to table consideration of the bill, which would have effectively killed the bill, given that there are fewer than no business days left on the session's calendar, 180 to 230. Then it was time for the Republicans to kill their own proposal. House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Representative Robert W. Goodlatte, Republican of Virginia, offered a motion to table to his committee, which passed 342 to 72. The next article I have for you is off of the Common Sense Show with Dave Hodges, and it says Washington Post admits it's a fake news site. WAPO issues partial retraction to independent media. It says Communications, the parent company of Common Sense Show, we are releasing the following statement regarding the allegation that Common Sense Show is playing the role of Russian collaborator and staff at the Common Sense Show is serving as Russian agents in an attempt to illegally interfere with America's electoral process. Be it known that the Common Sense Show is seeking co-litigants for the purpose of suing the Washington Post for these fabricated allegations mentioned in this previous paragraph. Oh my goodness, I can't make this stuff up. Mike Adams was moving in the same direction as Common Sense Show. At this point, it is pointless to sue the Washington Post as a single entity because when fellow litigants appear, the cases will likely be combined into class action suits. In an article dated November 27th, 2016, Mike Adams made the following statement in which the Common Sense Show wholeheartedly agrees with. It says, the Washington Post will forfeit any last semblance of credibility if it does not retract this obviously false, baseless, and defamatory story. In response to false allegations that the CSS is an agent of the Russian government. It says if the Post fails to retract its apologies, they will surely be sued. Which illustrated the CSS is a Russian agent. This picture depicts Russian soldiers at Fort Carson. And there's a picture if you want to pull it up and look at it. It says, I have been at the forefront of exposing the presence of Russians and other foreign troops, example, Germans, Canadians, Danes, on American soil. The CSS has repeatedly stated that the Russians would serve as the vanguard for an United Nations action against the American people, and that gun confiscation would be at the top of their agenda. Those that are familiar with Common Sense Show know that this publication is fervently pro-Constitution, pro-Christian, and pro-conservative. It is well documented that the Common Sense Show has had a long-running feud with Russian media since Dave Hodges' appearance on the Voice of Russia radio program. It's all well known that the CSS has espoused a concern regarding the volatility of Putin and possibly of the brutality spilling over into World War III. Further, the CSS has been at the forefront of exposing the presence of massive amounts of Russian troops on American soil since Obama entered FEMA into bilateral agreement with Russian Foreign Ministry to bring Russian troops in the country. The agreement was finalized in 2011. Further, the CSS has publicized photos of Russians traveling in DHS vehicles in Kentucky and Tennessee, courtesy of Sherry Wilcox. I previously published the following public message to the Washington Post, ridiculous allegations, which states the following. Produce proof that the Common Sense Show is an agent of the Russian government or face a lawsuit with all the intended publicity that can be generated. In an attempt to avoid litigation and further being exposed for the fake news site that it is, the Washington Post issued the following statement. Editor's note. The Washington Post on November 24th published a story on the work of 4 sets of researchers who have examined what they say are Russian propaganda efforts to undermine American democracy and interests. One of them was Prop or Not, a group that insists on public anonymity, which issued a report identifying more than 200 websites that, in its view, wittingly or unwittingly, published or echoed Russian propaganda. A number of those sites have objected to being included on Prop or Not's list, and some of the sites, as well as others not on the list, have publicly challenged the group in conclusions. The Post, which did not name any of the sites, does not itself vouch for any validity of Prop or Not's findings regarding any individual media outlet, nor did the article purport to do so. Since the publication of the Post story, Prop or Not has been, or try that again, Prop or Not has removed some of the sites from its list. Bravo, Sierra. The Washington Post reported that collectively the independent media were Russian agents. Now they are backpedaling by claiming that they did not directly publish our names, so they are not responsible for the hypertext links included in the story. The implication is that this rag sheet, not even fit to housebreak a puppy on, thinks that by saying they did not publish our collective names, they only linked to the claim, somehow absolves them from the responsibility that they committed slander is utterly ridiculous. The Washington Post linked to the allegation and made it a part of their story. The Washington Post has engaged in spreading fake news, and this half-hearted attempt at a retraction in an effort to avoid subsequent litigation is not good enough and does not come close to satisfying my claim against the Washington Post. We may only be country bumpkins compared to the Washington Post. However, the common person could see that this backpedaling statement issued by the Washington Post does not come close to meeting the proper standards for retraction and an apology. Therefore, I renew my demand that the Washington Post not only fully retract this story, but that globalist owner Jeff Bezos be the one quoted for issuing the apology. Further, I demand that the Washington Post pay each of the offended parties $10,000 each. I would strongly suggest that the offended parties donate this money to a veterans cause. In conclusion, Wednesday's Washington Post admitted that the work by the site link to the article served as a basis for the entire article. Further, this article was the biggest article of the day for the Post, so the damage to our collective reputations was substantial. Recklessly, the Post admits that they cannot vouch for the validity of the Proper or Not's findings regarding any individual media outlet, in effect admitting the entire story was fake news. Thank you. The Washington Post just admitted that it engages in fake news. One more point needs to be made. Jeff Bezos purchased the Post. He needs to be made to feel the heat. I'm calling for a boycott of Bezos' Amazon holdings. I will never purchase anything from Amazon. This Bezos-owned corporation is part of the group that my publication is fighting against. For those who are still interested in developing a class action lawsuit against the Washington Post, please contact Dave Hodges, and it gives his email here. So there you have that article. The next one that I have for you is off of Western Journalism, and it says, mainstream media overlooks Obama's role in curating fake news. The mainstream media's panic surrounding fake news has reached a fever pitch. Following a shooting with no injuries at the Washington, D.C.'s pizzeria, some pundits are now claiming it's downright dangerous. But where was the moral outrage over fake news during Obama's administration? Google Trends, a service that tracks how often a particular search term is entered over a period of time, shows that the search for fake news spiked almost immediately after Trump won the election on November the 8th. And there's a chart showing that. It says the mainstream media showed no signs of concern when Obama administration symbolically pushed fake news to the press corps. Obama's deputy national security advisor, Ben Rhodes, bragged to the New York Times about how easy it was to shape the narrative. The average reporter we talk to is 27 years old, and their only reporting experience consists of being around political campaigns, Rhodes told the New York Times in May. They literally know nothing. On to explain how the White House shapes the news, the easiest way being from a briefing podium and their dedicated press corps. Ben Rhodes' assistant, Ned Price, added how prominent reporters in the press corps go on to lead fulfilling careers in journalism. I'll give them some color, Price said. And the next thing I know, lots of these guys are in the .com publishing space and have huge Twitter followings, and they'll be putting this message out on their own. Another example of the Obama administration's allegedly peddling fake news came from Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber. Lack of transparency is a huge political advantage, said Gruber in an October 2014 discussion at the University of Pennsylvania, and basically call it stupidity of the American voter on what basically that was really, really critical for the thing to pass. The next article I have for you is off of BizPac Review, and it says, never took a knee. Navy Admiral puts anthem protesters to shame while honoring vets at Pearl Harbor. At one of Wednesday's events, marking the 75th commemoration of the Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor, Navy Admiral Harry B. Harris, Jr. made a not-so-subtle reference to NFLer Colin Kaepernick and his followers. And the tweet reads, or the quote reads, hashtag PACCOM Commander, Pearl Harbor vets never took a knee, never failed to stand during the national anthem. Then the article goes on and says the clip is via U.S. Department of Defense. Harris, who serves as Commander, United States Pacific Command, found stark contrast between patriotism of those living during those times with that of those living today. You can bet that the men and women that we honor today and those who died that fateful morning 75 years ago never took a knee and never failed to stand when they heard our national anthem being played, he said. That earned him a huge round of cheers and applause, indicating that patriotism still lives in some corners of the country. Surprisingly, or perhaps not so much, Harris's observation brought the venom to the surface of those on the left. And there's some tweets here. One of them says, not surprising a DOD official would make a racist statement against civil rights, but it's still disgusting. There's several here. I'll grab another one. It says, I'm sure that those in Japanese internment camps may have thought about it. So you can pull it up and read all those and read the comments for yourself in that article. The next one is off BizPac Review. It says, illegal alien deported 8 times, returns and kills 2 women. CNN's Jake Tapper reports on it, sort of. After having been deported 8 times, an illegal immigrant, a Mexican national, returned to the United States a final time and killed 2 women in a hit-and-run accident when he was driving while intoxicated. After Miguel Angel Villasenor Saucedo, I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced, age 40, struck and killed the 2 women with his truck in Louisville, Kentucky on October 22nd. He fled the scene on foot. Although he has yet to be apprehended, this week federal grand jury indicted Saucedo for illegal re-entry after deportation, an offense that carries a 2-year sentence. The U.S. Attorney's Office for Western District of Kentucky said in a statement, LMPD officers later obtained a criminal complaint from Jefferson County District Court charging Villasenor Saucedo with leaving the scene of a fatal hit-and-run accident. A warrant has been issued for his arrest. Soon after the fatal accident, it was learned that he was Mexican national illegally present in the United States. Upon learning of his illegal immigration status, the United States, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE office began investigating him and found that he had previously been deported from the United States on 8 occasions and did not have lawful authority to be present in the United States. CNN's Jake Tapper tweeted, DOJ, undocumented immigrant involved in fatal Kentucky hit and run has been deported 8 times previously. Some folks thought Tapper's use of undocumented rather than illegal amounted to putting lipstick on a pig. The concern about being politically correct didn't sit well with many, and there's a bunch of tweets about it. One of them says, undocumented criminal, fix it. Uh, Another one says, why can't you say illegal instead of undocumented? George Guajardo, former Mexican ambassador to China, took exception to the word illegal and was immediately sent to school. He says, because no human being is illegal, for some, their status is, hence undocumented. Words matter. And he got an answer from Twitter person named Carrie. Says, actually breaking the law is illegal. So if you are here illegally, you are an illegal. Laws matter. And there's a lot of comments and stuff if you want to pull that up and read up on that yourself. The next one is off of Breitbart.com, and it says IRS data. American dream evaporates amid mass immigration and automation. The probability of American children earning as much as their parents has plunged from 92% down to 50% during the last 7 decades, according to a new study of tax data and the shrinking American dream of upward mobility. Compared to people born in 1940, the babies born in 1980, today, 36-year-olds, the index of the American dream has fallen to 50%. Only half of them make as much money as their parents did, says a report in the New York Times. In the industrial Midwestern states that effectively elected Donald Trump, the share was once higher than national average. Now it is a percentage point lower. They're going backwards is the norm, the newspaper admitted. The study of IRS report is here, so you can click a link and read that if you would like to. And I mean, they got a graph here in this. It says the fading American dream, and it looks like a ski slope. I'm not kidding you. This goes from like, let's see, it's a percent of children earning more than their parents went from like 92% down to 50% from 1940 to 1985. Says the researchers suggested the generation to generation loss of income is caused by a rise in economic inequality. Most of the decline is due to more unequal distribution of economic growth in recent decades rather than the slowdown in GDP growth. Increasing economic growth rates to the higher levels experienced in mid-century America would increase the fraction of children earning more than their parents to 62%. Spreading the existing growth more broadly across the income distribution would raise the level to 80%. But that claim assumes that the inequality is a cause, not just another consequence, of the economic factors that are reducing economic growth. The New York Times report also tried to focus the blame on rising economic inequality and offered to a list of feel-good progressive fixes implemented or did not produce beneficial impacts during President Barack Obama's 2 progressive terms. Given today's high-tech global economy, the single best step would be to help more middle and low-income children acquire the skills that lead to good-paying jobs. Notably, most college graduates still earn more than their parents did. Other data show, yes, even after taking into account student debt. But education is not the only answer. Incomes have also stagnated because of the rise of corporate power and the weakened labor unions, leading profits to rise at the expense of wages. The decline of two-parent families plays a role too, and tax policy has not done enough to push back against these forces. The middle class, not the affluent, deserve a tax cut. Neither the researchers nor the New York Times writer suggested that the federal government's policy since the 1980s have hugely inflated the labor supply amid labor-reducing automation might be contributing to the rising inequality and declining salaries. Under President Barack Obama, the federal government annually imports at least 1 million legal immigrants, plus almost 1 million temporary white-collar guest workers and blue-collar guest workers for jobs sought by Americans. Those 2 million new foreign workers, plus roughly 8 million illegal immigrants and jobs, compete against 4 million young Americans who begin looking for jobs each year. That wage-cutting competition shifts roughly $500 billion a year from wages and salaries into company profits, boosting investors in Wall Street, but reducing productivity growth and creating a huge population of unemployed men and government-dependent poor people in the United States. In March of 2016, Donald Trump promised to protect America from guest worker programs such as the HB1 program, which outsources at least 650,000 white-collar jobs to foreign guest workers living in the United States. I'll end forever the use of the HB1B as cheap labor program and institute the absolute requirement to hire American workers first for every visa and immigration program, he said, no exceptions. In August of 2016, Trump laid out his pro-American immigration policy in an Arizona speech. The truth is, our immigration system is worse than anyone realizes, but the facts aren't known because the media won't report them. The politicians won't talk about them, and the special interests spend a lot of money trying to cover them up. Today, you'll get the truth. The fundamental problem with the immigration system in our country is that it serves the needs of wealthy donors, political activists, and powerful politicians. Let me tell you who it doesn't serve. It doesn't serve you, the American people. When politicians talk about immigration reform, they usually mean the following: amnesty, open borders, and lower wages. Immigration reform should mean something else entirely. It should mean improvements to our laws and policies to make life better for American citizens. And you can click on a link that'll let you read the full text on that. The next article I have for you is off of Liberty Writers News, and it says, breaking, Germany just declared new rule which has Islamists burning their burqas. You know that thing, the world finally changing when German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the last leader of the old world order, decides to demand a ban on all burqas in Germany effective immediately. This is a huge twist considering Merkel was one of the biggest proponents of Europe taking in Muslim immigrants before Germany was hit with a wave of violence, rape, and religious bigotry resulting from her immigration policies. Angela Merkel is now running for a fourth term as chancellor with a good chance of winning. This time, however, she's anti-immigration and pushing an end to all German migrant policies. This is not the first time Merkel has brought up her dislike of burqas. Back in August, she told, well, I can't even pronounce this name. I think I ain't even going to try to pronounce it. Lord have mercy. That's about a mile and a half long. From my point of view, a completely covered woman has almost no chance of integrating herself in Germany, she says. It's hard to disagree there. Burqas and Islamic fundamentalism in general are extremely oppressive to women. Hell, in Saudi Arabia, they have religious police beating up women in the streets for fun. Thank God people are finally waking up to the dangers to Western society that these people pose. They are not just unaccustomed to our culture, they are taught to hate and destroy it. They physically attack gays, women, and anything they find inferior. Luckily, Germany is finally taking a stand, and now we can work to fight back fundamental Islam together. So thank you, Angela Merkel, for doing your job. There is video in that if you'd like to pull that up and take a look at it. The next one we have is, well, let's see. It's got a big old ad on it. Let's get rid of that. There we go. This is off of investors.com, and it says, California Carl's Jr. says, so long, Golden State. States, okay. To hear Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, you'd think that taxes can go up to 60% or even 80%, and businesses and investors will just pay up. But the growing number of businesses stampeding out of the high taxed areas suggests that they're very wrong. We got more evidence of that this week when CKE Restaurants, the corporate parents of Hardee's and Carl's Jr. restaurant, announced that they are relocating to Nashville, Tennessee. Hardee's will move its headquarters from St. Louis, Missouri to Nashville, Tennessee, one of America's fastest growing states. Oh, and did we mention that the state has no personal income tax? Meanwhile, Carl Jr.'s move puts more egg on the face of California and the political class in Sacramento. Hamburger fast food chain Carl Jr. was founded in California and for years has been headquartered in um, Carpinteria, I think that is pronounced, California. The highest income tax rate in California is 13%, so moving to Tennessee, where the tax rate is 0, will save the company millions of dollars on taxes a year. Yes, we know that CKE's official line is that the firm is relocating because it has less need for office space as it consolidates operations, but the company executives say this with a wink. Tax savings are a big factor as it is the stifling regulatory environment on the left coast where businesses are treated like villains and rich people as cash dispensers for big government programs. It's not a coincidence that CKE's CEO Andy Pudster has been one of the leading critics of high taxes and erroneous rules in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento. The state legislative group, ALEC, finds its latest Rich States, Poor States rating of the states on business climate that California ranks 44th of all the states in business competitiveness. California has lost roughly 9,000 companies over the last decade, with most of them moving to Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. Last year, in a major loss, Toyota moved its North American headquarters from the Golden State to North Texas. Thanks to its high taxes and burdensome regulations, California's hemorrhage of jobs and businesses won't end soon. Burger King recently relocated its headquarters out of U.S. completely in favor of Canada, where the business tax rate is only about half of what it is in America. Dozens of others have left through inversions to cut their tax burden. So thanks to the federal and state tax codes, American businesses are departing for friendlier shores, taking thousands of high-paying jobs with them. Given all this, why do Clintons and Sanders keep saying that they are going to get more tax out of the rich with higher tax rates? California is now going to get 13% of 0 from Carl Jr.'s. Just as the state gets 13% of 0 from Toyota, and Washington, D.C. will now get 35% of 0 income from Burger King. Hillary and Bernie say that they stand for working folks, but the victims of their plundering the rich with high tax policies are middle-class families who are losing their jobs in California. To make America great again, one goal should national policies look more like those of Tennessee and less like those of California. The next article I have for you is on BizPac Review, and it says, U.S. Steel CEO hopes to bring back jobs they were forced to let go during depressive era, thousands of them. The American steel industry may bring back thousands of jobs now that Donald Trump will be president. Mario Longhi, the CEO of U.S. Steel Corporation, said the domestic steel industry may be able to rehire up to 10,000 employees who were laid off during the recent economic downturn. The steel industry has laid off more than 16,000 workers since January of 2015, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Longhi blamed the firings on cheap foreign steel products being illegally dumped in the United States. Longhi told CNBC's Power Lunch panel that Trump presidency would boost job growth by easing corporate regulation and providing tax incentives to enable hiring in great numbers. We already structured to do some things, but when you see in the near future improvements to the tax laws, improvements to regulations, those two things by themselves may be significant driver to what we're going to do. I'd be more than happy to bring back the employees we've been forced to lay off during that depressive period. A quick clip was proudly tweeted by Trump's senior advisors, Dan Scarnivo, and they've got that video here if you'd like to take a look at that. And says U.S. Steel CEO Mario Longai on CNBC, and what at real Donald Trump said at campaign rally in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The article goes on and says Longai added that Trump may be able to help the U.S. economy grow at least 3.5% a year versus the less than 1% GDP growth under Obama, and that too will bolster job growth. There was a point in the past couple years that I was having to hire more lawyers to try to interpret these new regulations that I was hiring engineers, Longai said. That doesn't make any sense. You can watch more of Mario Longai's interview in a video clip here. It says the U.S. Steel echoed the sentiments of SoftBank CEO Mashoa Son, who recently agreed to invest $50 billion and create 50,000 new jobs in the United States. Son is the CEO of SoftBank and the chairman of Sprint. The Korean-Japanese businessman is worth more than $17 billion. While the mainstream media is trying to discredit Trump's role in the SoftBank deal, Son told reporters that he would not be making the $50 billion investment if Hillary Clinton had been elected. Son said he wanted to congratulate Trump on his new job, and he wants to help make America great again. I just came to celebrate his new job, Son said. I said, this is great. The U.S. will become great again. The last article that I have for you is off of boingboing.net. Can't make this stuff up. It says Wells Fargo is successfully convincing judges that forged arbitration agreements are illegal, or try that again. Forged arbitration agreements are legally binding. When you sign up for Wells Fargo account, you're required to sign an arbitration agreement giving up your rights to sue the company and requiring you to have your case heard by an arbitrary paid for by and dependent on Wells Fargo instead. At least 2 million times Wells Fargo employees were pressured, pain of termination and lifelong blacklisting from financial industry, into opening fake accounts in their customers' names. These accounts existed solely to accrue fees, which in many cases made their customers overdrawn or simply generated suspicious seeming queries against their credit records. And when that happened, the credit records were dinged, which can cost you a job, a loan, even your house if you can't refinance your mortgage. Now, those millions of defrauded people are trying to sue Wells, and Wells is arguing that the binding arbitration agreements on accounts that you didn't open are also binding. If you're forged on a fraudulent application, you waived your right to sue. What's worse, courts are buying it. In dismissing one large case seeking class action status in California, a federal judge ruled last year that it was not wholly groundless that customers could be forced to arbitrate over accounts they had never agreed to. That case is now being settled according to legal filings. In a statement, Wells Fargo said it was working with customers to reimburse any improper fees. If the issues are still not resolved, the bank offers a free mediation service. Arbitration, the bank said, is a last resort. And there's a link you can click on here. It says Wells Fargo killing sham account suits by using arbitration. And oh man, oh man. I can't believe that the courts are buying that. If you don't open an account, they forge your name on a document and open an account and start charging you fees. It's dinged your credit score. Maybe you lose your job over your credit score dropping, or you can't obtain a mortgage to refinance your home. You end up losing your home over them fooling with you, and you can't take it to court because they forged your name on a document. Are you kidding me? Where in the world is the common sense gone? It's dead and buried. Holy smoke. Now, I got news for you. If you got money in Wells Fargo, you need to be getting it the heck out of there. Wow. Okay, well, that's the news that I had for you. I hope it's beautiful where you are. It's cold here. It's getting colder, and they're going to have snow over the weekend. So my time outside is probably going to be very limited, but I am going to try to make it out and get a breath of fresh air. I hope you are able to do that as well. Ground yourself, soak up a little earth energy, take a deep, deep breath of probably cold air where you are, and be glad you woke up above ground, because there's people that don't.